There is a moment that comes, late at night, in the lives of many of the people I speak to. A moment after the house has gone quiet and the last light on the kitchen counter has been turned off, and you sit on the edge of the bed, and in the stillness, the weight of what is owed presses down on your chest in a way it does not press down on you during the busy hours of the day. You know the moment I am describing. The bills, the balances, the interest compounding invisibly in the dark while you try to sleep. The mental arithmetic that begins in your head before you have even lain down. If I take this from here, and I delay that until next month, and if nothing else goes wrong, then maybe. And then, almost always, something goes wrong. And the maybe becomes the next impossible sum you carry to the next impossible night. I want to tell you, before we go any further, that you are not alone in that moment. There are millions of souls lying awake tonight inside the exact shape of the weight you are carrying. And I want to tell you something more than that. What you have been doing in the hour before sleep, the mental arithmetic, the silent counting, the low hum of worry that does not quiet until exhaustion finally takes you, is not only exhausting you, it is actively sealing the very channel you have been praying to open. Every single night that you carry the weight of the debt into the bed with you, you are signing a new covenant with the presence of that debt. You are telling the unseen layer of reality very clearly in the language it actually understands. This weight and I belong to each other. And the unseen layer is doing what it has always done, in every tradition that has ever studied it. It is honoring the covenant you have signed. There is a psalm. It is not long. You can memorize it in one sitting if you have never memorized a psalm in your life. And it has been spoken 7 times before sleep by women and men in the darkest financial hours of their lives for more than 2,500 years for one specific purpose. To close the covenant with the weight of debt before the eyes close for the night. To lay down clean. To let the hours of sleep, which in our tradition are not empty hours, but the hours when the soul ascends to the upper worlds and negotiates the coming day, be hours in which the soul is not carrying a bound vessel into the place where the covenants of the next morning are made. I am Rabbi Naomi. For more than 30 years, I have sat inside the texts of our tradition, the Tehillim, the Psalms of David, the Talmud, the Zohar, the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, and the Hasidic masters who followed him. My grandmother carried a small, water-stained book of Psalms in the inner pocket of her coat through every border she crossed in her long life. And she taught me, when I was still a very young woman, that there was a specific way to use one specific psalm in the last minutes of the day, for the specific purpose of loosening the bindings that had tightened during the hours of the light. She did not teach me this in a lecture. She taught it to me on an autumn evening when I was 24 years old, and I had come home to her small apartment in tears because a bill had arrived that week that I did not know how I was going to pay. And she sat me down on the small couch by the window, and she put her hand on my hand, and she said, "Naomale, I am going to show you what my mother showed me when I was your age, and what her mother showed her, and what will hold you on every night like this one until the end of your days." And she opened her book of Psalms, and she turned to the psalm I am going to teach you tonight. You must stay with me until the final minute of this teaching. If you miss the psalm, or you miss the number 7, or you miss the specific posture, or you miss the small pause that must be held between each of the 7 repetitions, you will have spoken a beautiful prayer 7 times, and you will go to sleep, and in the morning, almost nothing will have moved. But if you stay, and you receive every piece of what I am about to share, you will have in your hands, by the end of this video, the practice my grandmother used every night of her adult life, from the hour of her marriage to the hour of her death, and that I have used on every difficult night of my own for more than 3 decades. Before we go any further, I want you to do something small for me right now. Type the word Layla in the comments below. Layla is Hebrew for night. In our tradition, the night is not the enemy of the day. The night is the mother of the next morning. When you declare that word publicly, you are making a small first peace with the hour you have been dreading, the hour when the weight has been heaviest, and you are beginning to turn the night back into what it was always meant to be for you. Now listen, because I need to tell you why the hours you have been spending worrying about your debt in bed have not only been failing to help you, they have been actively deepening the very condition you have been worrying about. You believe, as most people believe, that lying in bed and thinking through your finances is at least neutral. At worst, you tell yourself, it costs you some sleep. At best, you might find an answer in the quiet of the night that you could not find during the day. This is not true. In the mechanics of our tradition, the hour before sleep is the most spiritually plastic hour of the entire 24-hour cycle. What you repeat to yourself in the last hour before your eyes close is what the soul carries with it into the ascent of the night. The sages taught that a portion of the soul rises during sleep and is weighed in the upper world, and whatever covenant the soul arrived carrying is the covenant that is renewed for the following day. If you carry the weight of debt into those hours, you renew the covenant of debt for tomorrow. If you carry the sentence, "I will never get out of this," into those hours, you renew that sentence as a ruling in the morning that is coming. Every night of worry is not a passive night. It is an active renewal of the thing you have been trying to escape. This is not metaphor. This is what our sages taught for 3,000 years, and it is what my grandmother understood with such clarity that she would not go to bed on any night of her life without first unbinding herself from whatever had bound her during the day. She would not allow the weight to cross with her into the night. And the practice that she used to refuse that crossing is the practice I am about to give you. Let me tell you what I watched with a woman who came to me 3 years ago, because this is the story that finally decided me to teach this publicly, rather than only in the small room of my study. She was 46 years old. She was a single mother of 2 teenagers. She had been divorced for 6 years. She worked 2 jobs, days as a bookkeeper at a small firm, and 3 evenings a week as a shift manager at a restaurant her cousin owned. And despite those 2 jobs, despite a level of effort that had exhausted her into a tiredness that had settled into her bones, she was carrying a little over $40,000 in what she called the heavy debt. Credit cards, a medical bill from an emergency 2 years earlier, a small personal loan she had taken to keep the lights on during a 6-month period when she had been between jobs. She was not asking me for a financial plan. She told me, the first time she sat in my study, that what she was actually coming for was sleep. She said she had not slept a full night in almost 4 years. Every night between midnight and 3 in the morning, she would lie awake running the numbers in her head. And every morning she would wake up more tired than she had gone to bed, and the exhaustion would compound, and she could feel herself, she told me, slowly becoming a shadow of the person she had been when she was younger. I did not give her a financial plan. I told her to continue everything she was already doing, both jobs, the small payments she was making on the heavy debt, the consultations she had begun with a debt counselor her cousin had recommended. And I added one thing. Every night, for 40 nights without missing one, she would speak one psalm 7 times before closing her eyes. I taught her the psalm. I taught her the posture. I taught her the pause. And I told her what my grandmother had told me, that the psalm was not going to pay her debt. The psalm was going to refuse to let her carry the weight of the debt into the night, so that the soul could rise clean, and the morning could arrive under a different covenant than the one she had been renewing every night for 4 years. She came back on the 42nd day. She told me that on the first night, nothing had happened. She had spoken the 7 repetitions, she had gone to sleep, and she had woken at 2 in the morning, exactly as she had been waking for 4 years. On the third night, she slept until 4, the first time in longer than she could remember. By the end of the first week, she was sleeping until 5. By the end of the second week, she was sleeping through the night 3 nights out of 7. On the 20th day, the test came, and I will tell you about the test in a moment, because every person who does this work walks through it. But she walked through it. On the 28th day, her employer called her into his office and told her that a bookkeeping position had opened at the main branch in a city 40 minutes away, and that they wanted her to take it, with a salary that was nearly 60% more than what she had been making. She would no longer need to work the 3 evenings at the restaurant. She accepted. Within 90 days of taking the new position, she had been able to increase her debt payments by an amount that meant the heavy debt would be cleared in just under 3 years, instead of the 9 years her counselor had originally projected. She told me, the last time I saw her, that the thing she was most grateful for was not the new job, it was the sleep. Because, she told me, in the sleep she had finally come back to herself, and from the place of herself, everything else had begun to become possible. What that story actually teaches is the thing I need you to hear before I give you the psalm. The practice does not pay your debt. The practice refuses the renewal of the covenant with the debt every night. And in the space that is opened by that refusal, the morning begins to deliver things it was not delivering before. A promotion, a phone call, a refund, a conversation that ends differently than it had been ending, a decision that becomes clear. The debt does not disappear by morning in the sense of the number on the statement becoming 0 overnight. But the binding of the debt over your life begins to dissolve that very first morning. And from there, the path to the number becoming 0 begins to open in ways that had been sealed before. This is the universal principle our sages laid out, and it is one I want you to carry with you for the rest of your life. What you sleep with, you wake with. What you refuse to sleep with, you wake free of. It is that simple, and it is that powerful. The psalm is Psalm 4, not a famous psalm, not one most people could quote, but it is the specific psalm our sages, in the Talmud, in the Tractate of Berachot, identified as the psalm of the night, the psalm spoken before sleep for protection, for release, for the closing of the covenants of the day. In the first line, King David cries out to the God who answers in the time of distress. In the middle of the psalm, he speaks directly to the people around him, who have been making his life heavier than it needed to be. B'nai Ish, he says, sons of man, how long will my glory be turned to shame? And in the closing lines, he speaks the line that is the true heart of this practice. B'shalom yachdav eshkava v'ishan, ki ata Adonai levadad levetach toshiveni. In peace together I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. That line is the seal of the whole psalm. That line is the line you are speaking 7 times over the hours of your own coming night. You are declaring, into the unseen layer, that you will not carry the weight of the day into the bed with you. You are placing the hours of your sleep under a different authority than the authority of worry. Now listen carefully, because the precision here is the entire practice. The psalm is spoken 7 times, not 6, not 8, 7. 7 is, in our tradition, the number of completion, the 7 days of creation, the 7 years of the sabbatical cycle, the 7 blessings under the wedding canopy. You are enacting, with the 7 repetitions, a complete cycle of release. A full cycle in which whatever has been bound during the day is loosened before the soul ascends. The hour is the last hour before you close your eyes. Not an hour before, not 2 hours before, the last hour. After you have washed, after you have prepared for bed, after the house has gone quiet. The posture is this. You sit on the edge of your bed. You do not lie down yet. Your feet are flat on the floor. Your spine is straight but not tense. Your right hand rests, open, palm down, on the center of your chest, over the heart. Your left hand rests, open, palm up, on your lap. This posture is the physical expression of what you are doing spiritually. The right hand sealing what has been spoken into the heart, the left hand open to receive what is about to be placed into the vessel. The book or the page is placed on a small surface in front of you, a bedside table, a chair pulled close, anything flat where you can read the words without bending. Do not recite from memory in the first 40 nights, even after you have memorized the psalm. The physical act of reading the words from a page is part of the anchoring of the practice in the world of the eye. After the 40 nights, if you have memorized it, you may speak it from memory, but in the early days, read. The voice. You speak every word of every repetition aloud. Not loudly, not so loud that it wakes anyone sleeping in the house, but clearly, with the voice leaving the mouth, because the angels of the night, the Melachim of peace, our tradition calls them, do not hear what stays behind the teeth. After the 7th repetition, you do not speak another word, not to check your phone, not to respond to a message, not to ask your spouse if you locked the door. The seal of the practice is the silence that follows the final word. You rise from the edge of the bed, you turn off the last light, you lie down, and you sleep. Between each of the 7 repetitions, there is a small pause. 1 full breath, no more, no less. 1 breath in, 1 breath out, and then the next repetition begins. Do not rush. Do not race through the 7 in 4 minutes because you are tired. If you cannot give the practice 10 or 12 minutes of your own attention, the practice is not yet important enough to you to do its work. The kavana, the intention, through all 7 repetitions is the same. You are declaring, with each repetition, that you are laying down free of what bound you during the day. Each repetition is not a plea. It is not a cry for help. It is a declaration of what is now true because you have declared it to be true. You are not begging the night to be kind to you. You are commanding your own soul not to carry the weight across the threshold of sleep. Here is your immediate action. Tonight, before you sleep, you go to your Bible or to any honest translation of the Psalms, and you find Psalm 4. You read it once through so that you know what it says in the language you think in. Then you perform the practice exactly as I have described it. You sit on the edge of the bed. You place the hands as I have described. You speak the psalm aloud, slowly, 1 time. 1 breath. Then again, 1 breath. 7 times in total. Then silence. Then sleep. You commit to 40 nights without missing one. If you miss a night, you begin the count of 40 from the beginning. This is not punishment. This is the nature of the practice. 40 is the number of transformation in our tradition. You are not doing this once. You are doing it 40 times, because that is how long it takes for the old covenant of nightly worry to fully dissolve, and for the new covenant of nightly release to fully set. Once a night, only once. Not 3 times. Not whenever the anxiety spikes at 2 in the morning. If you wake at 2 in the morning anxious, you do not repeat the psalm, because the hour for the practice has already passed. You breathe. You say 1 sentence. B'shalom yachdav eshkava v'ishan. In peace together I will lie down and sleep. And you return to sleep. You are not looking for the debt to become 0 by the morning after the first night. You are looking for the first signs of movement, a deeper sleep than you have had in weeks, a morning that feels slightly lighter, a phone call, a piece of mail, a clarity about a decision that had been eluding you. Somewhere between the 10th and the 20th night, these begin to arrive, and they compound. What I have given you tonight is 1 psalm within a complete architecture of our tradition's work with the hours before sleep. It is a real practice, and if you perform it with the precision I have described, you will feel the shift within the first 2 weeks. But I want to be honest with you about what one psalm alone, even repeated perfectly, can and cannot carry. The full tradition of Layla in our heritage, the tradition of what the sages called the Tikkun Layl, the repair of the night, contains the other psalms for the other burdens, the specific psalm for the night when the anxiety is about a person rather than a number, the psalm for the night before a difficult day, the psalm for the night when a decision must be made by morning, the sealing spoken over the doorway of the bedroom, and the practice for the waking, which is the other half of what makes the sleeping practice work. I have gathered all of it, the Hebrew, the transliteration, the translation, the commentary of the sages, into a single resource. It is not a collection of prayers. It is the full operating plan of the hours between sunset and sunrise, as my grandmother lived them for 60 years of her life. If you are serious about reclaiming the nights of the rest of your life, not only for 40 days, but for the years that are coming, you will move now, while the clarity of this teaching is still awake in you. The link is in the description below this video. Everything is there. Now hear me, because this next part is what undoes most people, and I will not let you begin without warning you. Somewhere between the 7th and the 14th night of your 40, a test will arrive. It will not always be financial. Sometimes it will be a night of particularly bad sleep after 3 good nights in a row, and a voice inside you will say, "See, it was never going to work, I knew it." Sometimes it will be a bill that arrives on the wrong day, or a phone call that triggers every old pattern, and you will think, what is the point of sitting on the edge of the bed speaking a psalm when this is still the shape of my life? Listen to me. That voice is not the truth of your situation. That voice is the last grip of the old covenant as it is being loosened. Every night of practice before the test was building the new covenant in the unseen layer. The test is the moment the old covenant feels its replacement and reaches up for a final hold. The people who receive through this practice are not the people who never meet the test. They are the people who meet the test and continue the practice the very next night. One night. Do not skip. Sit on the edge of the bed, hands in the position. Speak the 7 repetitions. Lie down, sleep. The test passes, almost always, within 3 to 5 nights of its appearance, and what tends to follow it is significantly larger than anything that came before. One final thing before I let you go. What I have placed in your hands tonight is not a technique I invented. It is the last prayer my grandmother spoke on the last night of her life, with her children around her bed, and it was the first prayer she taught me as a young woman crying on her couch about a bill I could not pay. You are now a keeper of this prayer. Share this video with one person you know who lies awake at night with the weight of what is owed pressing on their chest, who has not said anything to anyone because they are tired of saying it, but who would receive this teaching if it came to them through your small act of kindness tonight. When you become the channel for this practice to reach another soul, the sages taught that the merit returns to your own nights in ways you will feel even if you cannot trace exactly how. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, subscribe now and turn on the notification bell. Next week, I am going to teach the practice of the waking, the specific words spoken in the first 60 seconds after you open your eyes in the morning, which are the other half of what makes the practice of Psalm 4 work at its fullest depth. Based on what I know about the hour we are living in, you cannot afford to miss it. And if anything tonight reached something real in you, press the like button before you leave. It tells the platform to carry this teaching to another soul sitting tonight on the edge of their own bed, with their own numbers spinning in their own head. And maybe tomorrow they will not carry the weight across the threshold of sleep for the first time in years. May the nights of the rest of your life be hours of release and not hours of renewal of what has bound you. May the soul that rises from your sleep each night return in the morning to a vessel that is lighter than the one it left. And may the weight that you have been carrying to bed for too long find, tonight, the shoulders of the one who alone can carry it, while you lie down in peace and sleep. Shalom, Chaverim. Shalom.